Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's not getting the global attention it deserves. A story unfolding right now in Tanzania. This beautiful East African nation, famous for the Serengeti, Mount Kilimanjaro, and its reputation for stability, is currently standing on a knife's edge. What started as peaceful protests has escalated into a tense national standoff, and the world needs to understand what's at stake. For decades, Tanzania has been seen as a beacon of peace in a sometimes turbulent region. But beneath this calm surface, tensions have been simmering. Citizens have grown increasingly frustrated with economic hardships, the rising cost of living, and a feeling that the government's promises haven't translated into reality for the average person. This isn't just about statistics on a page. It's about the daily struggle to afford food, fuel, and basic necessities. It's the story of families working harder but falling further behind. This widespread frustration finally boiled over. Opposition parties, channeling the public's sentiment, called for nationwide protests. Their goal was simple: to demand accountability and to ask for a clear plan from the government to address these pressing economic issues. They weren't calling for an overthrow. They were calling for a conversation. They organized rallies, hoping to give a voice to the millions who felt unheard. But the response they received was not a dialogue, it was a declaration of war on dissent. Instead of meeting with protest leaders or addressing the people's concerns, the government's reaction was swift and severe. The official narrative was that these planned demonstrations were illegal and a threat to national security, aimed at causing chaos and disrupting public order. Police forces were mobilized, and a clear message was sent: any form of public protests would be met with force. The stage was set for a confrontation, not a resolution. And then, the situation took a dramatic turn. The government issued arrest warrants for key opposition leaders. Think about that for a moment. The very people trying to organize peaceful demonstrations were now branded as criminals, hunted by the state. The charges: incitement. Essentially, they were accused of stirring up trouble simply for asking citizens to exercise their right to assemble. This move transformed a political dispute into a full-blown crisis, effectively criminalizing political opposition. Let's break down the two conflicting narratives here, because this is crucial. The government and its supporters argue that they are maintaining law and order. They claim the opposition is reckless, using public frustration for their own political gain and pushing the country toward instability. From their perspective, the arrests are a necessary step to prevent chaos and protect the nation's peace. They paint a picture of a responsible government safeguarding its citizens from dangerous political agitators. On the other side, the opposition and its supporters tell a very different story. They say these arrests are a blatant act of political intimidation, designed to silence any and all criticism. They argue that the government is not protecting peace, but protecting its own power by crushing dissent. For them, this isn't about preventing chaos, it's about fabricating a crisis to justify a crackdown. They see a government that is afraid of its own people, a government that chooses handcuffs over conversations because it has no real answers to the country's problems. Caught in the middle of this high-stakes political battle are the ordinary people of Tanzania, the millions who aren't necessarily aligned with any political party but are simply tired of struggling to make ends meet, tired of their concerns being ignored, tired of seeing their country's leaders fight each other while their own quality of life declines. Their desire for a better life has been hijacked and turned into a political football. The streets, which should be a place for commerce and community, have become a symbol of this division. This situation raises a fundamental question about the nature of democracy in Tanzania. A healthy democracy doesn't just tolerate dissent, it thrives on it. The freedom to assemble, to protest, and to criticize the government is not a privilege, it is a right. When a government begins to treat peaceful opposition as a criminal act, it crosses a dangerous line. It sends a chilling message to all citizens: stay silent, or you could be next. This erosion of democratic space is arguably the biggest threat facing Tanzania today. So what happens now? This is the critical question. If these arrests are carried out and the opposition leadership is jailed, what will be the fallout? One possibility is that the government's strategy works. The protest movement could lose its leadership and momentum, and fear could push people back into silence. The government would consolidate its power, and the status quo would be maintained, at least on the surface. But this would be a fragile, bitter peace, built on suppression, not consensus. But there's another, more volatile possibility. These arrests could be the spark that ignites a much larger fire. Instead of intimidating people, it could enrage them. It could galvanize the public, turning scattered protests into a unified nationwide movement that is much harder to control. Removing the official opposition leaders might even lead to a more radical, leaderless movement emerging from the grassroots. In this scenario, the attempt to prevent chaos could end up creating a far greater and more unpredictable storm. This isn't just a local Tanzanian issue, it has regional and even global implications. Tanzania's stability has long been an anchor for East Africa. A descent into prolonged political unrest could have a ripple effect across the region, impacting trade, security, and diplomacy. The international community, often quick to praise Tanzania's peace, is now watching nervously. Will they speak out in defense of democratic rights, or will they remain silent, prioritizing stability over freedom? Their response, or lack thereof, will send a powerful message. Ultimately, this is a story about a nation at a crossroads. Will it choose the path of dialogue, reform, and a more inclusive democracy where every voice matters? Or will it go down the path of repression where power is maintained through force and fear? The choice made in the coming days and weeks will define Tanzania's future for a generation. It's a test of the nation's democratic institutions, the resilience of its people, and the wisdom of its leaders. The story they might want you to hear is one of maintaining order, but the story you need to hear is about the fight for the very soul of a nation. It's about freedom, fear, and the fundamental right to demand a better future. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this complex situation. Do you think this crackdown will silence the opposition, or will it backfire and fuel even greater unrest? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to understand these important global events. If you found this video informative, please give it a like, subscribe for more deep dives, and share it so more people can be aware of what's truly happening. Stay informed and stay safe.